Hi developers, in this video we'll learn how to create pop-ups in Xamarin Forms applications. So we'll build a sample application like this one right here. When the user clicks on a button, it will show a pop-up asking for user input, for example. Then user click on OK button, that pop-up will go away. And you see also here it appears and it hides with an animation. So without further ado, let's start creating this application with pop-ups. From within Visual Studio, I'll start creating a new Xamarin Forms application. For that, I'll go to File, New Project, and here I select the cross-platform template under the Visual C#, then choose Mobile App Xamarin Forms, then give our application a name. Here I'll call it Popup App, then click OK. In the next window, we'll be asked if you want to use the shared project or .NET Standard. Here we'll use the .NET Standard as that's the new thing that Xamarin recommends to use. Once the project is created, the first thing to do here is to install the plugin. Here actually is my Udemy course, so if you want to take a look at it, then here it is, the GitHub page for that plugin, which contains the source code, which is an open source project for our plugin that we'll be using today. So here you find a little documentation, and here's some print screens for what you can do with this plugin. So it works on Android, iOS, and Windows. For today, we'll be showing also only the demo for iOS, but it works for the three platforms. To install that plugin, I need to go to Solution, not to the project, then right-click from the solution to be able to install that plugin to my all four projects. So right-click, then Manage NuGet Packages, and from here we go to Browse and we search for that plugin. I have its name right here prepared. It's rg.plugins.popup. And an important here is to check the include pre-release in order to get the latest version as per of today, because the versions before this one doesn't support .NET Standard. So if you install the previous versions, it won't work for you. Then we need to check all the projects that we want to support for this plugin. We hit install, and once the install is finished, then we'll go to the next step, which is creating the pop-up. So I need to go to my PCL or to my .NET Standard, then right click, add a new item, and from here I select content page or content view, whatever you want. Then I give my view a name. Here I call it pop-up view. The content view contains this default code, so we need to change this code in order to be able to use the pop-up view. So I call my pop-up page object, which comes from the plugin that we have installed, and that object lives inside a namespace. We call it pages, and it's this following one from rg.plugins.popup.pages. So make sure to not forget to add this XMLNS namespace. Then instead of using this default content, we'll create the content for our own pop-up. So here I have prepared some sample code that will add a user interface for a sample login pop-up, for example. So here I do have a stack layout which contains two child stack layouts. The first one will be used to show the login, so I have a label called login, which will contain, or which have also an entry for typing the login of the user, and they have the same for the password with a property called is password set to true in order to hide the typed password. Then I have a button for called login, which will be used to validate the login. So this is just a sample login interface. Once we created that pop-up, now we need to show this pop-up. For that, I need to go to the main page, which is the first page that will be shown in my application, and here I'll add a button that will be used once it's clicked. I wanted to show my pop-up. For that, I included here a text show pop-up and an event handler clicked, we call it show pop-up. So let's implement that event handler in order to give it the instruction to show my pop-up. So I go to the code behind mainpage.xaml.cs, and from this right here I paste this code which uses the pop-up navigation .instance.push async. Here you might know push async and navigation, which we always use from the page in order to navigate from one page to another. And here pop-ups use it almost the same concept. So in order to show a pop-up, it's like a navigation from my current page to another page which is not of type page but of type pop-up. So instead of using navigation, we use pop-up navigation push async. Then I introduce the name of my pop-up that I want to show. Now our application is ready, except that it will crash when it starts. Why? Because we did forget an important step when using this plugin, which is initializing this plugin. So we need to initialize that plugin for each platform. So we go to the Android, to the main activity, and before the line of Xamarin Forms.init, we need to add initialization for the plugin. So we need to add this line of code rg.plugins.popup.popup.init, and we pass the current activity and the bundle parameter. We need to do the same for iOS and for Windows. So for iOS, we need to go to the app delegate.cs, and from here, right before the initialization of Xamarin Forms, we need to initialize our plugin. So we need to use rg.plugins.popup.popup.init, and we need also to do the same for Windows UWP if you want to use it. Now we are ready to run our application on iPhone, and here I do have my button. If I click on the show pop-up button, it will do exactly that. So here I just made some changes to this user interface, so you won't get exactly this one. I click on that button, then it shows my pop-up, and here it shows my exact pop-up that I have designed. So you can hide this pop-up by clicking outside of it. But what if I want to hide it when I click on the login button, which should be the case? So to do that, I need to go to the pop-up source code and implement this clicked event handler. I call it handle clicked. So we need to implement it from the code behind popup view.xaml.cs. So here I'll add that event handler, which have two parameters, object of type object and event args. Then again we'll use the pop-up navigation in order to hide this pop-up. So as we did use pop-up navigation to show this pop-up, we use the same object to hide this pop-up here using the pop async method. Then I pass here the true parameter in order to animate the hiding the pop-up, and here it is a demo of that. In addition to just showing a pop-up, this plugin have another cool feature, which is animating the pop-up. So whenever the pop-up will show, it will show with an animation, and the same thing when it hides, it will hide with an animation. So let's see how to do that. So to add animations, we need to go to the pop-up code, and here I paste this sample code which initializes an animation of type scale animation, taking the parameters the duration in, which is 400 milliseconds, duration out, easing in, and some other parameters to parameterize your animation. As you see, adding animation is really easy with this plugin. So if you want to take a look at the source code of this app that we have built today, you can go to my GitHub repo, and from this repo right here you can get the complete source code to play with it later. I hope you liked this video, and you also liked my 200 plus videos on YouTube about almost anything related to Xamarin Forms applications. I also have more content on Udemy, where here I have created a course that will help you to get started connecting your Xamarin Forms application to a REST API. So here I suppose you don't know anything about what REST API is and how to develop Xamarin Forms, so we start from scratch. So if you are a student, this is really for you. The course started with creating the REST API using ASP.NET Core 2.0, then testing that REST API using Postman. Then the second section is creating the Xamarin Forms application and connecting to the REST API using HTTP client and JSON to serialize and deserialize the JSON responses from the web API.